You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. Or perhaps we should rename ourselves the Rain Podcast. I'm Jack Hope.
No, it's got to be the Pak Bean Podcast.
Pak Bean Podcast, yeah, that's a good one. I'm Jack Hope, I'm joined by Ross. We're going to be talking about rain, we're going to be talking about Pak Bean, we're going to be talking about Zimbabwe with reference to Pak Bean. And there were two other cricket matches yesterday which were walkovers. We'll probably mention them as well. And then we'll have a look at what's going to happen at the weekend. There's a load of repercussions to, what's happened over the last couple of days. The tournament which keeps on giving. And it gave...
And taking away.
And taking away. What's it taking away?
The cricket itself. The rain itself.
I see. Yeah. Well, we're not on the same page there.
And taketh away.
Not on the same page there. Ross, where do you want to start?
Well, let's keep people wanting more, right, when it comes to the Pat Bean side of things, because I think that's going to be the real bread and butter of this show. Shall we go back to the South Africa game?
Yeah, sure. There. Right, yeah. Why don't we do it chronologically? Nothing happened today, so that will mean we can wrap up the show very quickly if we start to overrun. Yesterday, Pakistan took on Bangladesh. Pakistan took on Bangladesh. South Africa took on Bangladesh and curb stomped them. That's the summary. They won by nearly 100 runs. They scored 200.
104 runs.
104 runs. Riley Russo gets a ton. Quinton de Kock scores a bunch more himself. He's having a pretty good tournament. And Bangladesh basically didn't know what to do, so they lost. What are your first thoughts?
Well, Riley Russo. Is he the first person to hit back-to-back T20 centuries? I mean, this was a pretty good going. And his last four innings have been 0-0, 109, 107 or something like that. It was a rich vein of form.
He was only averaging 50.
Yeah, disappointing. For South Africa, what I like about them at the moment, and I think people have to start considering these guys as the potential winners of this tournament, purely on the fact that they are adopting a famous IPL tactic, which we have observed. They're doing the sacrifice. That is what they're doing. The sacrifice theory is going back. So for those of you who don't know, the sacrifice theory is when you take a certain player and you sacrifice him to the cricketing gods so that all of your other players can play better.
Yeah.
And that's the only explanation I can see for what is happening with Bavuma at this point in time. It
works well. This year, for example, classic example of this year, Kohli at RCB, he was rubbish. People were like, maybe we should drop him for this random other guy nobody's ever heard of. They didn't. They kept playing him. He kept getting zeros and ones. He got a 50 or 50 at one point, didn't they? And everyone was like, oh, Kohli's back. But what actually was happening there was they were sacrificing Kohli so that they could get good luck in other areas, and they made the playoffs. Interesting idea that you come up with there. I think it could well be true. It could well be true. They do. I think your point about them potentially winning the tournament is probably valid as well. I mean, thanks to Zimbabwe, and we'll get onto that. Their rain off also against Zimbabwe probably isn't going to come back to haunt them. They're playing pretty good cricket. They're going to make it to the semi-finals, and then it's two 50-50 shots. And when you have guys like Riley Russo and Quinton de Kock, you're always going to be in every game. And that's before we even talk about their bowling. Fierce bowling. Proper fierce bowling.
Yeah, I would not like to face Ulrich Nortje at the best of times, let alone on that pitch that they were playing on. It was pretty scary. But what I liked about this was that this is the frailty that you see also in the Bangladesh setup. Like, they look so undercooked, so underprepared, and it probably comes from them not playing on any surfaces that ever represent this type of cricket, right? And you look at the South Africa lineup with de Kock and Riley Russo both being the formidable left-handers that they are. When they've only pretty much got good left-arm slow bowlers with Mustafa Zir and I mean, the rest of the paces aren't brilliant, let's be fair. Like it's going to be a trouncing. That was the only way this game was going to go. And we probably have some Bangladesh fans listening, but they will probably agree that Bangladesh are lucky to be in the in this stage of the tournament. Like they should have been in the group stage. Like they are bad at cricket at the moment. It's quite disappointing to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting better in some other formats. This format in particular, though, they are, well, disaster, aren't they? There's no other way to put it. They're
That's
just
horrible.
not good.
We don't want to be saying that, do we? We don't want to be saying that, but that's what it is.
Anything else from this match to take? I mean, it's not. I don't want to like talk down the South African performance. It sets them up quite well to go through it. It gives them a good net run rate boost. Get some of their players into form. I do think as well, though, it's probably worth less. You know, we should probably learn less from them beating Bangladesh than them playing basically any other team in this tournament.
But you have to put away what's in front of you, right? England have failed to do that. Pakistan have failed to do that.
Of course.
South Africa, clinical.
Yeah, right. The next game after that was India. India played a game of cricket, didn't they? Who were they playing, Ross?
They were playing the mighty Netherlands, and it was. I just used the word clinical. This was a clinical performance from India. This was a no risk. We are just going to go and batter the Netherlands.
I wouldn't say they battered them, to be honest.
I think the game was completely in their control. Okay, maybe they didn't batter. They dominated.
Yes,
There was at no point that the control got into the Netherlands' hands. India were always the favourites. They established their dominance, and they continued to establish that dominance across the whole game.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a fair reflection. They're like a team in a football match. You know, it doesn't really happen anymore because the difference between the good and the bad teams is so much. But like Chelsea always used to win like 2-0 at Stamford Bridge. Do you remember those days with Mourinho? It was like they took no risks. The other team would have one shot in the whole game, and they'd score 2 goals, maybe one from a set piece. Wouldn't be that interesting to watch. But like you were left in no doubt at the end of the game that Chelsea were the best team. That makes complete sense. That's what India were here. I thought they weren't mega exciting with the bat. At points actually they were quite boring, dull. Yeah. Surya Kumar Yadav and Kohli a little bit at the end did some fireworks to make it good, or not to make it good, but to like show that they could, if they wanted to, get 200 against the Netherlands. They just weren't going to try.
This is what I found really interesting, right? Because 179 for 2, you've left runs out there. There's no doubt about it. You have not used up your resources in the way.
They were on like 45 after 8 overs, Ross.
You're sitting there going like, what is going on? And they must have just seen like, there's been some upsets in this tournament. We are not going to go down that route. KL Rahul, I thought was going to get a century. He got triggered, wasn't out. Should have reviewed it. When you're the best player, why don't you review it?
Well, I mean that's a good point. If you are King Legend of cricket, you should be reviewing. You shouldn't be listening to a mere mortal like Rohit Sharma who tells you that the ball's going to miss, that you were out. I didn't get that. I don't understand why you're not reviewing that. I mean, worst case scenario, surely you're thinking umpires call LBW there.
And what's really, like, if you think of the grand scheme of this game against the Netherlands, an LBW decision against one of your players later on in the innings isn't going to make any difference either. So you might as well just be like, I'm not out. Like, I'm not going to be out. Like, you might as well.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be lucky if they got another LBW appeal, given the difference in ability. Maybe that's a bit harsh. There's a couple of the Dutch bowlers came out of this match with a little bit of credit as well. Particularly towards the end, they looked like it was going to go, or it looked like it was going to really be a massacre. And then the last sort of 4 overs, I think they did control the rate a little, and I wouldn't say salvaged a chaseable score, but didn't concede 200, which is a pretty good performance, I think, of the Netherlands against India. That's the biggest mismatch in the tournament I think we've seen so far. It might be the biggest mismatch we will see. Well, it will be, I think, the biggest mismatch we see. Period. And and the Netherlands have only lost by 56 runs.
Yeah.
Which is all right for a team of people.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Respectable.
Yeah, they're never going to win, were they? But we've got a super chat. Thank you, Swadin, for sending that over. Good to have you with us.
What was quite interesting to see, like there's a lot been made of Kohli getting back to form, and Kohli was in good touch, right? He was in really good touch, but he was also doing that classic thing where he was like 35 or 35 balls, and I was just sitting there, just like, if I'm an India fan, like, do I just want to win this game? Probably yes is probably the answer.
Yeah.
Or do I want to go out on a World Cup stage and I want to see fireworks happen? I want to. There's nothing wrong with Kohli's performance against Pakistan. Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Sky's performance here was better than Kohli.
Well, Sky won the man of the match, and deservedly so.
Yeah, and there was a bit of even on the BBC. I think I posted it up on our Twitter. I've been like, it was the clickbait title of another Kohli masterclass. He was majestic, and he was all right.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He was playing the Netherlands, and he got 60 or 44. Like, it's it's like a 7 out of 10 performance.
Yeah,
you're taking it, aren't you?
You're taking it, but Sky has come in and obliterated it, and it's just a little bit like sometimes the old traditional view of you've hit the highest score, therefore you must be the best batter in that scenario actually doesn't come true. And I was very happy that Sky ended up with the man of the match or player of the match award, because it's nice to have proper talent and proper performances.
Someone in the chat, Samrat, has said, son of Harry Potter and Daniel Vittori was very impressive. Would like to see more of that guy. I don't know if he's talking about one of us or Tim Pringle.
I think he's talking about Tim Pringle.
Tim Pringle. He was good. He was good. No, we didn't get any. Nobody sent us any photos of him signing a Pringles can on after this game, which was maybe my highlight of the tournament from Noah. Back in the qualifier stage. Ross, I've got a question for you. Virat Kohli, we talk about boundary percentage on this show sometimes. 11% boundaries in that innings. Not great, but he keeps a high strike rate, 140, or walks off the pitch with a high strike rate, 140. Do you think that he's in his element here? Do you think the Kohli type player, Kohli specifically, are doing better than they would if this tournament were held on pitches where the boundaries were sort of 55 metres instead of 75 metres? Is the nerdle it into gaps and have all the shots, but perhaps not have the firepower to completely obliterate a team? Is that batter more valuable in this World Cup?
So I'm actually really glad you raised that, because I watched an interview earlier with Andrew McDonald, who's the Australia coach, and he was talking about Steve Smith and saying that actually that they've got a 15-man squad. Every player is in consideration, but based upon what we are seeing happening in this tournament, Steve Smith has gone up in their estimations and up in their bit, right? So it is going into it's going into the cricketing managers at the moment, selectors, and it is quite interesting that we are seeing teams like fundamentally fail. They're not being able. They can't go and hit unless you're Marcus Stoinis with your huge muscles. People are struggling to hit sixes. There's not too many people who are hitting fours either on that regular basis. I think South Africa's is the only game that's gone over 200 in this stage, and the likes of Kohli must be sitting there going, one, the pitches are pretty good. Like you're not.
You can't battle them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no real demons in the pitch. The fielders, you can't even see the fielders. Like they're so far away. And if it's got a camber, like the Tottenham Hotspur pitch has a camber. Like if you used to stand at White Hart Lane, you could, like a 6 foot tall person could stand at one side. They would not be able to see another 6 foot person at the centre spot. You'd be too low down. The camber.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I think you're right. I think Kohli is in his element here, and the batsmen who can occupy the crease have typically done better in this tournament, right? There's been a couple of outlying performances, but the ones who have actually batted through the anchors, I suppose, have been quite valuable in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I mean, that's something I've been thinking. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go all in on the theory yet, but I do think we've seen that to some extent. I mean, if you actually look through the top run scorers, there aren't that many people that jump out as having had a great tournament and necessarily falling into that bracket. I know we're only sort of halfway through the group stage here. Kohli got 144 runs from his 2 knocks. Hussein Mendes is 176 from 5, probably would be in that bracket too. Sikander Raza probably in that bracket too, 145 from 5. And then like there's loads of Irish players. Quinton de Kock definitely isn't in that bracket, but
historically has been, right? His strike rate is around 130.
It's a bit higher, isn't it? Quinton de Kock is more of a boundary striker than Coley. Like Coley is a fantastic non-boundary strike rate player. So
he's an occupier.
Yeah, a player who Coley will score a run a ball without hitting a boundary, and then if he hits a boundary, that's where you get that's the bonus runs to get you a higher strike rate. Most effective T20 batters, it's sort of the other way around. The non-boundary strike rates quite low. They don't hit many 1s and 2s. They don't find the gaps very well at all. But they smash a bunch of 6s and 4s. So it's like .6, .4. Is how Tim David bats, isn't it? Or Marcus Stoinis. What about this Muscles Stoinis?
as a baby name?
No. For Stoinis. People call him Stoin, don't they? Muscles Stoinis. If we just drop the markers and start calling him
just Muscles. Just call him Muscles. Yeah. Maybe that's what we should. Maybe on the podcast from now on, we don't refer to Marcus Stoinis as that. We just call him Muscles.
He has got.
We know him.
Yeah. He's
like Pele, he can be called Muscles.
I think the other thing is that there are some players or some teams rather who really can't play in the conditions. We've talked about Bangladesh. I think we'll move on to Pakistan in probably 5 seconds. But there was an interesting. I don't know what it meant. I'll say this: a bounce percentage chart that Freddie Wild from Crickfish shared. And the bounce percentage in Australia is 66%, and the bounce percentage in Pakistan, where it's the lowest bounce percentage, is like 31%.
Right.
I don't know what a bounce percentage is. It's a classic Crickviz conundrum, that I think. It's not even like an amount of bounce, is it? Like, what is a bounce percentage? Anyway, it probably makes.
To be fair, we know someone. Maybe we can ask.
Yeah. I would speculate it's something like when a ball is bowled at 140 kph on a length, when it, if it's released from 2 meters, how much of the 2 meters and bounce does it get when it goes past the batsman? 66% of 2 meters, for example, or 31% of 2 meters. Could be something like that. Anyway, we're speculating a little bit, but like there are some teams playing in very, very different conditions. Kohli is clearly a player who can adapt to varying conditions. Excellent test batter, always made runs in Australia, so he's probably loving it, and that might explain why some of the other anchors, Rizwan and Babar, haven't adapted. Probably less experience playing in Australia, and while we're saying that it's perfect for Kohli, perhaps that's not true for all anchors. Perhaps it's you need to be good in Australia and you need to be an anchor good in this T20 tournament. Or Muscles Stoinis.
Muscles. You have to be Muscles. Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of want to say Muscles Stoinis. There's a lot of S's there. A lot of sibilants. It's a lot of sibilants. Right, Ross. India. Anything else in India?
No.
Yeah, cool. Before we move on to Pak Bean, the raison d'etre of this podcast, a quick message to all you people out there on whatever platform you're on to like and subscribe to the Cricket Podcast. We've got 100 or so people watching along now, but only 22 likes. That's disgraceful. Come on, help us out. Help us bust the algorithm. We've had a pretty big uptick in listenership as well. So thanks if you're listening along during this tournament. Good to have you with us. And we've got a Patreon, which is in the show notes, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod for bonus content and to help us keep the show on the road. Right, Pakistan took on Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe batted first. They made 30 in the first 3 overs, or 33 in the first 3 overs. Very good start. No wickets. Yeah. You're thinking, oh, hello, there's going to be Pakistan or Zimbabwe have come to play here. Then Zimbabwe didn't really make any runs. For quite a long time, actually.
Stood still.
They stood very still. At the 15 over mark, they were just over a run a ball on 95, but managed to piece something together over the last 6 to at least keep that going and post 130. 130 isn't that many, I think Pakistan were probably 95% favourites at that point in time. I have a theory, and we'll talk about this, that they just thought they would win this match. Didn't think about the plan, didn't think about what they would do in different situations, didn't even contemplate the idea that Zimbabwe would bowl really, really well, particularly with the new ball in the power play. And they found themselves in a whole heap of trouble. They just didn't score any runs. 36 for 3 after nearly 8 overs. They were behind where Zimbabwe are at the same point in terms of wickets lost and runs scored. Little bit of a recovery. There was a little bit of a recovery. Shan Masood batted all right. I saw some people having a go at him, and I was like, he is not the person. yeah. He is not the problem in this match. He gets out, skipping ahead a little bit, with 5 overs to go, and it is trouble for Pakistan. It brings in Mohammad Wasim. He looked like he'd never batted in his life. Mohammad Nawaz had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I think that pressure probably told, recent events probably told, Pakistan for 1 run short. I mean, we'll talk about some of the drama, but my top level take on this: 1, Zimbabwe bowled excellently, really, really, top bowling. 2, Pakistan, you can't go into a contest against any team really. But particularly, a decent team. Zimbabwe aren't a bad team. They've got recent results. You can't go in and just assume you'll win because you bowled quite well.
Pakistan have lost to Zimbabwe as well in the last 12 months. It's not like one of those things where you're sitting there going, "Oh my God!" Like Pakistan, as the cricket Twitter we follow, has melted down. It is quite staggering. The level of upset here, I don't think is quite on par with the level of upset that they've actually got. I think Zimbabwe, as you said, they played well. 130 should not be enough. That should be a canter for a team like this, especially built the way.
Got 3 anchors.
Play cricket. Yeah, they literally have.
And whatever Iftikhar is.
55 years old. And I think when it comes to this performance, Zimbabwe can look back on it with a lot of pride, and it went right down to it. They kept their nerve. The keeper dropped the ball, and then still that was amazing. He was like, "No, I'm still here. I'm still doing that." And actually, in a moment like that, it's quite easy to be like, "I fucked it up," and actually, he didn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Pakistan knew that. I think they just really kept their heads in a way that Pakistan at no point in the innings really did. I mean, the only player who actually comes out of it with any credit at all is Shan Masood, and even he managed to get stumped down the leg side, which is sort of a slightly dismal way to get out. I just thought you have to show a little bit of aggression. You have to be a little bit brave. Pakistan, I suspect that they probably were a little bit worn out by the whole India experience, and when they came off when they bowled well and kept Zimbabwe to 130, probably just relaxed a little bit and didn't do the basics. You can't in a power play just not try and hit any runs. Like they just didn't try. They didn't take on a single bowler. They just let Zimbabwe bowl to them. And Zimbabwe, they're not pie chuckers. These guys are bowling 85 plus, bouncy wicket. The ball's coming through well. You have to do something to fight back a little. You can't just let them bowl to you. And well, Pakistan did, and I think they paid the price. I'm happy for Zimbabwe. I'm really happy for Zimbabwe. I thought that how brave they were. They just kept coming. Like when they had the early breakthroughs that really brought them into the game. Then Shan Masood and Shadab Khan quietened it down for a little bit. Then they got another couple of breakthroughs. Sikandar Raza, 2 in 2 balls. Yeah,
mate, he's going to get an IPL contract.
You reckon?
I think just by beating Pakistan alone, he might be in with a shout.
He was man of the match. Yeah.
But he's performed really, really well for them. And this is the thing. Sometimes it just takes the team taking a step up and performing well as a team, and then that 1 or 2 people every game just stepping up. He's on 3 man of the matches. He's going to get 3 watches from the captain. That was the deal, wasn't it?
Was that it? No, I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah, so Sikandar Raza's got a deal with his captain that if the captain got man of the match, Sikandar Raza would buy him a watch. If it happened the other way around, the captain buys him a watch, and he's got 3 man of the match awards. So he's gonna know what the time is in 3 different time zones.
Yeah, that's good. What's the most number of watches you've ever worn in one go?
But
it's not 3. One on each
One
arm.
on each arm. So yeah.
Um,
But here's let's stay on Raza for a second. Like,
Yeah.
His remodeling of his action, and people might not be aware of this, but I think he had a tumor in his arm that he had to have something taken out, and there's just not got the strength back in that shoulder to be able to do it. So he remodeled his bowling action and decided to turn himself into Sunil Narayan.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna do it, you might as well pick the best bowler in the world. Like you don't want to remodel your action and then you come out and you're Unad cat, do you?
But and it's also it's not a bad impression either, is it? He's not gone. I'm going to be
right.
Mr. Bean, and he's done like Pak Bean and Mr. Bean. That's a good impression. Like Sikandar Raza and Sunil Narayan, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
you could it definitely passes. Great last over as well from Brad Evans. Really held his nerve there, and especially after one of the early deliveries in the over got hit for 4. To come back and defend 4 off 4, I think it was. It's certainly 3 off 2 was top work. There was a really good video that did the rounds as well of people watching the game at the sports ground in Harare and going ballistic when Zimbabwe win, which is always good. I like that at World Cups when people in the home country go nuts. Pak Bean, I think that's what we're really here for, isn't it?
I think there's 100 people watching this right now.
I still don't understand what Pak Bean is. I've not been able to get to the bottom of this. Can you tell me? I'm just going to grab my charger.
Yeah, so it's Pakistani Mr. Bean. So for those of you who know the Rowan Atkinson character, Mr. Bean, I'm pretty sure what's happened is that there was a local event, the agricultural show that was supposed to be in Zimbabwe. And they thought they were going to get like Rowan Atkinson. They thought they were going to get the British actor who was going to come over. And what actually happened is that they sent a comedian in his place who was dressed up as him, and that is the Pakistani version of Mr. Bean, and has been referred to as Pak Bean the whole way through. And it's pretty staggering because he had an escort to get there as well. Not like a dodgy escort. He had an escort in a car to kind of get to the ground, whatever else, and get involved. And the Zimbabweans were not happy.
What was Pak Bean at the game?
I don't know. It wasn't at the game. It was at the international conference.
Oh, okay.
2016.
Right. Let me get to the bottom of this. Zimbabweans are unhappy that a Pakistani guy dressed up as Mr. Bean. And they have taken that anger, let it simmer, waited for a cricket match at a World Cup against Pakistan, and chosen that point to launch missiles and kick off and take revenge. Is that what happened? Yeah, I saw that the president of Zimbabwe had a pop, fired a shot about Pak Bean.
Yeah, next time send the real Mr. Bean.
I don't know.
That's winning your votes. That's all I can say. Fair play.
There's people telling me to search the image and stuff like that. I know, I've seen it. It's funny. I still don't really understand. Well, I've seen the tweets. I've read the guy's tweets as he gets more and more angry about Pak Bean. But I still don't really understand how this has become a World Cup storyline.
Apparently, so I'm reading something here. So apparently, he did a comedy show. His name is Asif Mohammed.
Okay.
And he completely flopped at the Harare International Conference Centre, and it cost them $10 each. And people were livid to lose their money because he'd sold himself as the Pakistan as Mr. Bean. So they paid all this money. He's turned up. They've kind of said, well, that's fraud. And he's just gone, no, you're a bunch of idiots. Like, I'm clearly Mr. Bean. What are you talking about? And sometimes you just got to lean into the con, haven't you? Sometimes you just got to do that.
Oh, okay. No,
David Duff, Mr. Bean's holiday from Cairns to Lahore. Very good.
I respect that. Yeah, good. So another fantastic game of the tournament. Another great upset. Probably eliminates Pakistan from the tournament. They can get through. They just need about 9 results to go their way. So they need India to win against Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe. They need maybe Zimbabwe to lose another match. It's a little bit. There's a route to qualification. It assumes that they're going to beat South Africa as well, though, and I'm not sure. They've got that in their locker. to be blunt, so looks like Pakistan are probably going home, Ross.
Yeah, and for a podcast that spends its life making pretty bold predictions and pontificating around relatively loose theories, for Pakistan, I think we nailed it in the preview. Like, we raised doubts around the fitness of Shahid Afridi. Like, if he was going to be super fit, then he's such a massive asset for them. If he wasn't going to be fit, then he was going to be a bit of a liability. And I don't think he's taken a wicket yet in this World Cup.
They bowled him out in the middle overs as well. They didn't even bowl him at the death.
And we said that the reliance on Rizwan and Baba can't go on forever, right? And if you've got a couple of failures, which can easily happen in T20 cricket, because I'm going to press the button, it's a high variance format, that they can't have such a weak underbelly. And they obviously brought in Shan Masood for this tournament and to kind of shore that up. And it almost worked today as that piece. And yeah, it just didn't, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah,
and we got that right, which is nice.
It is. Someone asked what happened to Zimbabwe. Well, I don't know. I guess he's had a rubbish tournament in the 2 matches he's played so far. Ross, let's talk about today. Both matches were rained off.
Oh, I think one more point.
Okay.
Is that we're big fans of redemption arcs on this show, and Nawaz almost had one.
Yeah,
but like poor, like, he's got out 2 balls to go, I think it is. Or 2 balls to go. He's got out, and yeah, he was the one who could have brought himself back from the dead. Like, after the India game, all the videos for Matt Hayden and Babar Azam kind of sitting there and going, well, we win as a team, we lose as a team, don't worry, like, we're all in this together, kind of thing. They didn't bowl Nawaz in the game against Zimbabwe, and then he's got out like this. And since then, it's been mudflinging from all sides, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it is a bit of a shame for him. You don't want to be the person who loses your country a World Cup match 2 games in a row in the last over. That's making a name for yourself for all the wrong reasons. Let's be honest. Today there were 2 rain-offs. So Afghanistan was supposed to play Ireland. Bit of a shame for Ireland, because if they'd won that match, people, all the prediction stuff says that Afghanistan have got a better chance of going through than Ireland, which I guess might be true because of who they're playing, but they're not that good. In these conditions, particularly with the bat, and I'd have fancied Ireland to pick up another win. It's also, for qualification for the next tournament, a disappointment for them, which is partly what Ireland are playing for. Because if you finish in the top 8, like, it's good. You don't have to go through the qualifiers. I'm not going to get into the permutations of that. That's another show. But it was an important match for Ireland. So for that to be rained off is disappointing. For them, and puts the chances of them finishing in the top 4 in the group in a little bit of jeopardy. I think they probably would have made it if they'd won. The next game was England v Australia. Everyone was looking forward to it. Yeah, well, it was a big one. It was practically an eliminator match for the 2 teams. It was drawn because
100,000 tickets sold.
Really?
Apparently so.
Yeah, for full house at the MCG. Yeah, it's a huge shame. Nothing happens. It doesn't really make that much difference. So lots of people in England were like, "Oh no, England have lost. Their hopes of going through are hanging by a thread now." It's really not changed anything. England probably had a 35% chance of going through before the match, and maybe a 34% now. That was a real coin toss of a game. Both teams probably don't mind that they will go on to play other matches, and they will be the deciding match. I think Owen Morgan actually said afterwards, and some people gave him a bit of flack for this, saying that England won't mind that much because they'll see New Zealand as an easier match. And I think he's right. I don't necessarily think that England are a banker to win it, but England are probably 60-40 against New Zealand, probably 50-50 against Oz. So
I think that's probably fair.
Yeah.
Especially they've been playing at the moment,
Yeah. What do you think? Any thoughts?
I just think that the weather having this impact is a bit of a shame, and like the time that they're playing in Australia at the moment kind of makes it's a big question mark around how these tournaments move forward in terms of the schedule and how they end up fitting into this schedule. Now, this is mega. You don't get bigger than the T20 World Cup, and this is the best format at the moment, which is attracting the most attention. You've got all of the big countries that are there playing off against each other in what is a very, very exciting tournament thus far, but is getting lost to the weather to a certain extent. This week's been rained out, and it's a shame they're not playing at the height of summer when they're going to schedule the bloody Farmers Big Bash League.
Well, I mean, they are basically going to do that, aren't they? Like it's why this isn't happening either a month later or after Christmas is of anyone's guess. I know Australia they like having the Boxing Day test and stuff like that. So maybe you can't whack it right in the middle of the test summer. Maybe they wouldn't have that. Yeah, it's only a month long though.
You can make if we can make the 100 work, you can make the World Cup work.
You could play it second half of January to the second half of February, or you could play it well, you can't do it. It's a clash with the Football World Cup, which probably went into their thinking as well. But I think that window would have been better for this. It's a shame. It's a shame. But it does mean that there's going to be some drama coming up. Next games for us. Let's talk about them. Next show we're going to do is on Sunday. We're going to have Dan Weston in the house for that.
Woohoo!
Dan Weston in the house. I'm going to be at the NFL, so I think you're doing that show. Joy.
Oh, lucky me.
Saturday's game. New Zealand v Sri Lanka. Probably it's a big game. It's a bit, because of the rain. It's New Zealand's fantastic start is maybe slightly less of a fantastic start now. If they win this though, I think they're virtually through. There's a big swing in terms of qualification chances. Whoever wins this becomes the favourite to get through in the group effectively. So it is huge. New Zealand, I think, are a little bit better than Sri Lanka, but we've been saying it the whole time, Sri Lanka dark horses. Now, what does dark horse really mean? It probably means like the weakest team most likely to have a run. It doesn't mean we think they're going to win the tournament, and I think we should clarify that. But they're not mugs. They were a little unlucky at the last tournament. They've played some pretty good cricket. They won the Asia Cup. Conditions probably don't suit them. But I think they can still trouble New Zealand. I'm going to back New Zealand, but I like Sri Lanka.
Okay, I'll back Sri Lanka then. I'll say
okay.
I think Sri Lanka have got this. I think New Zealand were lucky to win the first game against Australia. Like things went their way.
Lucky? They won. They got 200.
I think they were lucky. Like Finn Allen doesn't do that every day of the week, does he? Does he? So
no, I kind of get where you're coming from.
I'm backing my Sri Lankan boys.
Okay.
That's what I'm backing.
All right.
So I think we've got quite a few Sri Lanka fans throughout this World Cup who've joined us. So welcome, and also I'll back you. Jack likes the New Zealand.
Look, I think as New Zealand played the best they could possibly play against Australia. I don't think they were very lucky.
Yeah, lucky.
All right. Sunday, Bangladesh v Zimbabwe. I'm taking Zimbabwe all day long there.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it'd be
twice on Sunday.
It'd be disappointing if they do kind of somewhat like fall down. But after this, like, you never know. Like, they've got to the top of their Everest, right? They've had their best best performance in a World Cup for ages, for decades. Hadn't played international cricket for years as well properly, so they might be like, do you know what, we've done what we need to do, and they might just lose to Bangladesh and it could all come crashing down.
No, I think they're going to win.
Or
I think they're going to qualify.
You reckon they're going to qualify?
Yeah, beat India,
semi-finalists. Beat India.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility that we should take seriously because they have to play the Netherlands and Bangladesh, and if they get a little luck with rain, they could get through.
We would not be against that. Okay.
Another tough one for Pakistan. They've got to take on the Netherlands.
Tim Pringle.
He's going to be causing all sorts of bother. Come on, Pakistan are going to win that, aren't they? Surely they bounce back. And then India v South Africa.
That is a huge game. Absolutely.
It's a colossus.
Yeah, that is the two people who have performed the best so far out of this tournament, other than New Zealand.
I think it might only end up deciding who wins the group rather than potentially who gets knocked out. And there was a scenario after the rain off, where it looked like South Africa were going to have to win this match. Now they've got another fixture against Pakistan, and they'll probably still go through if they win that. Unless Zimbabwe come back into the frame. I think I don't know. I think that's really hard to call. I think India are probably slight favourites, but there's a lot that could go wrong for them. And Norkia and Rabada and the boys on quick decks, that could be fun. It could be fun. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those. I think it'll be a nip and tuck game. I think this requires big performances.
What's your key battle?
Well, it's easier, but I think the pace bowlers are there. How like Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul deal with the pace of Norway is going to be quite big. There's plenty of people who would say that Rohit Sharma is one of the best pullers of a short ball in the game. This will be a different challenge. Like Rabada and Norkia coming in and doing that is a big thing. It'd be interesting if they play Maharaj or Shamsi in this. They've typically gone with the safer option. But here they might want to add a little bit more variance in as a slight underdog, but who knows? Yeah, I think that'd be quite interesting. And then the other side, like the top order, De Kock's hit runs at the moment, that is good, but they are carrying Bavuma big time. They can't afford Bavuma to have a 30 from 30. I think he might as well just get out early. But he can't sit and waste 2 or 3 overs. They just can't.
I don't know. I think he's the sacrifice, isn't he? He's got a very clear role. I think India will win. I think Ashwin's going to be a big factor in there.
Fair enough.
You lefties floating around that South African lineup. Ross, we've got a handful of questions. So we're going to bust through them really quickly because we wanted to do a fairly short show today. Which rain do we like most from Ujwal, Australian or English? We don't get rain in England anymore, do we? There's rain.
Climate.
Yeah, climate. We've now basically got Australia's climate from the past. So we could do with a bit of rain. There's some rain here. We will take your rain, Australia. Dilip says, any particular reason? Do you think... why aren't they... Basically, this question is fairly long, but it boils down to why are they not using the backup stadium? They've got the Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, has hosted cricket matches, has a roof. Why is that not in play?
I have no idea. Maybe they think it's unfair on other things that kind of happen. Like if one game gets rained off in Sydney, there's not the option to play that indoors. But I'd be playing it. You want to see these games being played? Like get it in the indoor.
Then we got a couple.
And it's all about the angles in indoor.
Then we've got a couple. Vinay.
Okay.
First one. Which is the bigger upset, Zimbabwe over Pakistan or Ireland beating England? Ooh. Tough that. Yeah. Tough.
I think Ireland beating England.
I'd probably agree. I think England.
They weren't going to win either. That's the thing. England were going to win, and then the rain scuppered it, and so it does seem like a bigger upset.
I think England are better than Pakistan as well. I think Zimbabwe might be slightly better than Ireland. It's quite close, that one, but yeah. Actually, didn't Zimbabwe lose to Ireland? Qualifier weeks ago, that wasn't it? Vinay says, what can the ICC do to give more opportunities and exposure to associate nations? We can't just keep exploiting the golden goose, i.e. the top 3, Australia and India, and not grow the game. What are your ideas?
Well, we've talked about the European
Cup, yeah. Well, we had the Atlantis Cup, didn't we? Because we invited Zimbabwe.
Yeah. I quite like. It's kind of like the Copa America.
Yeah,
Copa America do that, don't they? They literally have the teams from South America, and then just like, do you want to come and join us, random country? And then it's like, yeah, that sounds cool. So they could do that. I think there's also a bit around bilaterals can be relatively dull, relatively boring. So I think they should be doing more tri series. I quite like the tri series model, and actually having a bit of representation is no bad thing. I
think there are a couple of for the slightly bigger teams as well. Ireland, Afghanistan, Zimbabwe. If you want to look at Test cricket, why, when teams go to Pakistan or to India, do they not play a warm-up test against Afghanistan, which is a test, but instead of doing like an intra-squad warm-up game, play Afghanistan? South Africa, why are you not playing a one-off test against Zimbabwe? England, why are you not playing a one-off test against Ireland? Like, you don't have to be. It's not loads and loads of Test cricket here we're talking about. It's replacing a game that everybody thinks is meaningless with one that at least has meaning from the point of view of the opposition.
I like that idea.
So you could do that, I think. Anyway, Ross, I think that's enough podcast for today. We're back on Sunday, probably in the evening time. We'll be a show with Dan Weston. I'm going to be at the NFL.
Well, I've only got one more thing to say.
Okay,
and
you've got
that is
one more
that
thing to
we've
say.
got Patreon, and one of our dear Patreons, VJ, it was his birthday this week. So happy birthday, VJ!
Yeah, happy birthday. Should we sing happy birthday to him?
Absolutely not.
That's a bit much that.
See you later. Thank you very much for watching. Sign up to our Patreon. What is it? Patreon.com/cricket podcast.